I was just reading a story about a later war that happened over in Cambodia, which is over in Asia, over near China. And the country next to Cambodia decided that they were going to take over Cambodia. So they sent bombs and they bombed everybody that they could. And then they went into the cities and they killed all the people they could get. And of course the people in Cambodia were hiding and trying to get away and trying to escape over the border to another country, Thailand, where they would be safe.
So, back to your childhood.
I have a question.
Yes.
He really doesn't understand war.
I know.
Does it actually take over?
Who? The people in Cambodia?
Yeah.
Oh, finally, somebody, I think it was Vietnam, I don't remember who took over and got rid of them.
Hey, your feet are in the shot, please. Get your feet out.
But they would decide that they were going to just kill all the people, for instance, who'd ever gone to school. Because those would be the people who had been taught to think. So they were going to get rid of them all so that the people who were left would obey them in whatever they said. That's quite a story.
That's dumb. Why would they do that?
Do you have any more questions about, like, what was their first jobs? Or what did they do
What were
after
your
college?
first jobs?
It was the newspaper delivery boy.
Oh, right. Did you have any other jobs, Dad? Before you went to
I
college?
worked at Macy's department store in
Oh.
downtown Kansas City, Missouri. So I was working in misery. And that was
Missouri.
during college time.
Ishmael.
Yeah, I had of course I babysat when I was a teenager, but I didn't really enjoy babysitting.
They'll
And,
eventually.
so I didn't do it too much, but I got a job in what is now Kmart.
Cody, no
Kmart.
squeaking, please.
And so I worked in Kmart for several years. I started when I was 15 years old, which was as young as you could start at. And the part I worked in was I sold paper and notebooks and stuff like that, and I also sold ribbons and wrapped presents for people. And I was the one who made all the bows.
Do you want to ask them if they had any pets?
They don't have any pets.
You had pets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had usually cats. We had kitties. Yeah, it's just, my mom liked cats.
I want
So we had
kitty.
several of times.
Did they go inside the house?
Oh yeah, yeah. Usually it was only one or two. But, and my grandmother lived with us. My grandfather and my grandmother liked to sit in a rocking chair like Kathy's sitting in there now, and she would fall asleep in the rocking chair, and her arm would be hanging over the rocking chair, and the cat would come over and scratch her arm until it actually
Oh, gosh.
blood.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, she didn't wake up.
Whoa.
She just slept. So we'd have to go make sure that the cat didn't get her too much.
Oh, my.
Oh, that would lick it.
What about you, Grandma? Did you have any pets?
I had one pet. Besides pets I would try to capture outside, like I would get some tadpoles and try to raise them into frogs, but I never was able to because I didn't know what to feed them. But I had a dog for about a year and a half. And the reason I got it was because a friend had some puppies. And I wanted a dog, and my dad was home at that time, and he said, yes, let her have a dog, so I got a dog. But it didn't last that long because it would get away. My mother would open the door and tell it to go run, and it would always come back. And one day it didn't come back, it got hit by a car.
Oh.
And so that was the end of that.
Why
dog.
did
I
she
was
want
very
to
sad.
run away?
She didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Bad. Naughty.
Some people like dogs and some people don't like
What
dogs.
kind of dog was it?
It was a mixture.
Uh-huh. What was
It
his,
a little bit taller than Misty here, a little bit bigger than Misty.
what was his name?
His name was Petey.
Petey.
That sounds like a name from a cat from a book I read.
Oh, yeah, Pete the cat.
No, Petey.
Petey the cat. How about
Okay,
siblings?
My mother named him.
Did you have brothers or sisters?
Well, you know Frank.
Uh-huh.
That's the only one I ever had.
He's younger.
Yeah, he's 5 years younger than I am.
Uh-huh.
Most people only had a couple of brothers brothers or sisters. Because during the war, of course, there were no men around to have children. So there were those years when a lot of people didn't have children.
And Dad, you have an older brother.
Yes, year and a half older than I am.
Uh-huh. Did you get along very well?
Generally, he had a friend that he ran around with all the time, so we didn't do too much together. He was
That's
always
sad.
out with the older group. You know, he was a year ahead of me in school.
Did you have to share a room?
Oh yeah, yeah. We had bunk beds, and no, we had twin beds. We had twin beds, and whenever the weather got nice in the summertime, we were right on our two windows in our room opened onto the roof of the porch of the house, and we'd go out and sleep on the roof because it was
Ooh.
too
No
hot.
wonder you didn't fall off.
What do you think, Cody? Would you like to sleep on the roof?
No.
The roof wasn't very steep, so it wasn't too bad to sleep on. It's just nice to be out there in a little bit of cool.
Yeah, we had a roof at our house too. Kathy will remember this. And on the 4th of July, when they fired the fireworks, they were firing them toward our house. And they would all go out on the roof and watch the fireworks. And one year, the fireworks actually came over, and they were hot coals coming down on the roof. They had to go inside.
Too bad.
You remember that?
I don't. That sounds dangerous. Did you ever go hunting?
I never went hunting, really.
I never did either.
No.
My dad was not a hunter. He wasn't that kind
The
of
only time I
person.
went hunting really was with the Boy Scouts.
Oh, you were a Boy Scout.
I was a leader, you know, and we went over to Pennsylvania to a guy's place, and he let us stay at his house and do some hunting.
That was when he was an adult, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Did anything embarrassing ever happen to you growing up? Do you remember?
I don't remember anything.
I don't remember much too either like that.
Yeah, I stayed at home most of the time. I didn't have too many friends to play with. And then when I got to be 10 and started taking music lessons, I wasn't allowed to go out during the week at all because I had to stay home and practice.
Oh, was it the piano?
Yeah.
Yeah, our problem was our school was about 2 miles away from our house, and we walked to school every day when we were in elementary school. And so we didn't really have many friends in the area where we lived, except the neighbors, and there just weren't that many neighbors our age.
Were there any games you liked to play growing up?
Well, let's see. Around our neighborhood, the kids would play a game called 50 All Scatter. And that was a kind of a hide and seek game. And somebody would count to 50 and yell 50 All Scatter and try to find the people. And then a lot of the kids, especially the boys, would play baseball in the street. And they had to watch out for cars. And we liked to sled, and we liked to ice skate. There was an ice skating rink close to our house. And on Saturdays, my friend Jan and I would go over to the ice skating rink, and we would ice skate in the winter. It was frozen, so it was always ice in the winter. And we roller skated. During the war, there were no bicycles because the bicycle plants had been turned into factories to make things like airplanes and tanks, and so,
Guns.
yeah, probably guns too, but there were no bicycles. Nobody could have a bicycle unless they needed a bicycle for transportation. Like the boy across the street had one because he had to go to high school, which was at least 4 or 5 miles away, and that was the only way he could get there, so he had to ride his bicycle all day, all the time to school and back. But if you didn't need one for transportation for working or for school, you couldn't have a bicycle.
What if
No
you already had a
scooters,
bicycle?
No bicycles, nothing like that.
Like, what if you already had a bicycle? Did you have to turn it in?
No,
Oh, okay.
but
You couldn't get a new one.
As a preschooler, I had a tricycle actually,
Uh-huh.
and it would fall apart.
Oh,
and my dad would take it up to the corner and get it put back together. They would weld it back together. And finally, it just got to the point where we couldn't get it fixed anymore. So I had no bicycles. We had roller skates. We roller skated everywhere. And even as a preschooler, I was a good roller skater.
What about you, Dad? Did you have any games you liked to play growing up?
Oh, one of the things that I remember is because of the war, probably we like to dig foxholes in our backyard, and we would play guns, play like we were in the war. And one of them we dug that was quite big. We dug a trench, and we covered it up with limbs and leaves and stuff, so we could be inside. Yeah, that was there for quite a while until my dad made us fill it in.
Why?
Why did he make you fill it in?
Well, he was afraid we were probably going to get hurt or something.
Yeah, when my brother and I spent our summers, first time it was part of our summers when Frank was about 5 and I was about 10. And then from then on we would go all the summer and we would stay with our great aunts. I think I was about 13 or 14 when the first year we did that, and we were in Canada, and our great aunts took care of us, and our parents were not there all summer. That was wonderful. Because our great aunts had not had children, and they didn't know how to raise children, and so they treated us like adults, and we enjoyed it very much.
What did they do?
Well, we could go wherever we wanted during the day, and nobody said we couldn't. If we wanted to walk into town or take the bus, we could do that. And we would go into town and get ice cream or go to the shops and stuff like that.
Was this after the war?
This was after the war, yes.
How old were you?
We started, I think I was 9 the first year I got to go. I went as a preschooler, but I hardly remember that. But I went the first year I was 9, and I had 3 great aunts at that time. And my Aunt Florence, a few years after that, got sick and died.
Aw.
And then I had 2 great aunts, Aunt Kate and Aunt
Eleanor? Yeah.
You got me.
Your mom is named after Aunt Kate because she was such a wonderful lady.
I don't know where it went though.
What was Aunt Kate like?
Oh, here it is.
Well,
up
Aunt Kate was very cheerful. I never knew her when she was sad. She was always very cheerful in all things, no matter what happened. She had friends among all the people in town. Some of the poor people were her friends. Some of the rich people were her friends because she'd grown up in a pretty rich family. And she had a hunchback when she got it. Please don't shoot me. When she was a teenager, she got a hunchback. And it still runs in the family, except that none of the rest of us had a bad one, but she was really bent over. And so her father did everything he could for her. He sent her to New York City because that's where the best hospital was, and they couldn't help her either, but she was there for several years. And while she was there, she decided, she had a governess with her who stayed with her, who took care of her, but she decided that she was going to get a job in a newspaper, so she went and became a newspaper reporter. And I remember her telling me that one of the jobs she had was to go to all of the different places in town where they were supposedly helping the poor and see whether they were really helping the poor. So she would disguise herself. Of course, with a hunchback, she really looked like she needed help. And she would go to all the different places to see if they would do anything for her. And the only one that helped her was the Salvation Army.
Oh, the other ones were just taking money and not helping people?
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow.
But she was a very good actress, so they thought she really was poor. And then after that, she came back home. She never got married because she was afraid that she would have children who would be hunchbacks, and she didn't want that. So then she got a job on a boat, a pleasure boat, a big ship, like the ones that we have out in the lake, out in the ocean. And she did that for years. She worked as a secretary. she get people things to do. Why don't you join this card game? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? So she had things that she could get them to do, and she did that for a number of years. And then she retired from that, and she started working for the Detroit Free Press, which is a newspaper. And she was part of the group that went and interviewed people who were famous. You know, if somebody came to town to play in one of the play places and put on a play, and there was a famous person, she got to go and interview them, and she was very outgoing and friendly, and she made lots of friends. She had lots of pictures that were from people who were famous at the time. And so she did that for years until she retired. And then she retired to Canada and lived in her little cottage. She had a little cottage. And she lived there until she died. But after my Aunt Eleanor, who was the oldest of the three, after her husband died, then Aunt Kate went to live with her, and they would come down to Florida every winter and spend the winter in Florida. And I think probably Aunt Eleanor had to pay for Aunt Kate to come because she just didn't have the money.